Welcome to Dune Chapter by Chapter. I'm Dominic. So in the last chapter, we saw that Paul had taken the water of life and had all these strange visions, and then he passed his consciousness into his mother, and he got to look in that place where the Bene Gesserit couldn't look. He wanted his mother to show him that place, and he saw into it. And so we got some kind of an explanation of what that is in that last chapter, that women are givers. So the idea of taking is appalling to them, where men are the other way around and all that kind of thing. Because Paul was stuck up against a wall. He couldn't see any further into the future. His prescience was kind of limited, and he'd almost maxed out on the spice. So in order to go any further, he had to find some way to break through that wall, and he did that by taking the water of life, which only the Bene Gesserit, trained Bene Gesserit, can take that water and transmutate its poison and access all the other memory and all that kind of thing, where all the men who have ever tried that have died. But Paul was the first one who was successful. And then they thought he was dead because he was like almost in a coma for like 3 weeks and things like that. But when he finally was able to change the water and survive the poison, he had this prescience. He could see everywhere into the now kind of thing. So he was aware of everything that was going on. He knew the Emperor was overhead, and he knew House Harkonnen with the Baron was overhead. So he could see all of this. And he knew how to destroy the spice. And he knew that the Spacing Guild was aware of this, because the Spacing Guild also has prescience. That's what allows them to fold space. So now in this chapter, the battle begins. The last, final, big climactic battle of the book. So we have Paul and Gurney Halleck and Stilgar, and they're hiding out in a cave, and they're watching what's going on at the main city of Arrakeen and the landing strips and all that, and they see this gigantic liner that's attached to a tent. A massive metal tent. And this is the Emperor's High Liner, and this is this huge, gigantic metal tent that's described in this chapter. And that's what he's came in there. And also there they see all these legions of Sadukar. There are 5 legions of them. Also they see that the Harkonnens are there. They got all their ships out and all their men. So this is a big, huge battle that's going to take place. But Paul's pretty confident he's going to win it. So their first plan is they're going to strike while there's a sandstorm on its way, because the sandstorm will take out any house shields that they have protecting their ships and this big metal tent and all that. Because of the static friction of the static charge created by the vicious sandstorms, actually shorts out the shields. So they're going to strike at that moment. And also they're going to blow a hole in the shield wall. Now the shield wall is like literally a wall of rock that kind of surrounds that whole area and kind of protects everything inside of it. And Paul's going to use atomics to do this, which everyone thinks he's crazy to do, because this would actually violate the Great Convention. So all the houses have their own atomics, but nobody uses them. And if any house goes to use the atomics against another great house, the price is that everyone basically dogpiles the house that did it, and they face planetary annihilation. So it's this kind of like this thing, mutually assured destruction. So there's very strict rules to how houses engage each other in combat. That's why the rules of Canley. So they have to try to fight each other through espionage and assassination and things like that to keep everyone from destroying themselves with these atomics. But Paul's logic is, well, I'm not really using these atomics on people. I'm just using them on the shield wall to blow a hole in it. And he says, besides, I know how to destroy the spice, so the guild knows I know this, so they're not really going to do anything about it. He's pretty confident in this. And so we see that as the storm approaches and stuff like that, they set off the atomics and they hide downward deeper into this cave. And then they get a communications through their signalmen that one of the Sieges have been raided by Sadukar and the Emperor Sadukar. And Alia has been captured, and his son Leto, Paul Atreides' son, has been killed in that raid. Which they don't really spend very much time in the book on this first son that Paul and Chani had together. They kind of like, I guess because he's so small, they kind of glaze over it. If you're not paying attention, you can almost miss the fact that they had a kid together in this book. But they did, and his son is killed by the Sadukar. And so before they even get a chance to tell him, Paul already knows that his son is dead, because he has this prescience now, so he knows right away, my son is already dead. So he knows that. And Alia has been captured, and her fate is still yet to be decided. So they destroy the shield wall, and now they're going to go in and they're going to start attacking the Emperor and take back and make their final strike. And this is really interesting because now all the great houses are over top. All the great houses are waiting to see how this is going to play out. And they're all waiting to see if they can get a piece of Arrakis for themselves. And it is kind of ballsy of the Emperor just to lay his tent right there and everything right there. And at this point, like, they're still, even the Harkonnens, they're still really underestimating the Fremen and Muad'Dib. And but nobody knows yet that Muad'Dib and Paul Atreides are the same person. Just about everyone still thinks that Paul Atreides is dead, and Muad'Dib is just some random Fremen guy that became a religious figure and a fanatic and is leading this charge. And so at this point, they're still kind of taking, the Fremen. They're not really, even to this point, they're still not really taking the Fremen serious. But very soon they're going to. Now, the other thing in this chapter I kind of noticed is you kind of get to see Paul really unites all the Fremen. You kind of get to see there's kind of like two groups of Fremen. You have like the hardcore ones that live out in the desert, but then you have city dweller Fremen. And then the populace that lives in the city, not all of them are Fremen. Some of them are Fremen because some of them take Fremen wives. And but Paul has managed to even unite them, where the city folks. So the Fremen that live out in the desert, they don't really, and Stilgar mentions that in the chapter, that they've never trusted the city dwellers. And there's always been like this mistrust of them because they've always kind of just, I guess, passively taken on whatever new boot was on their neck at that time. But Paul has even managed to get them on their side. Because he mentions that in this chapter, that even the city-dwelling men are ready to fight. Even they've had enough of Rabban. Because you got to remember, Rabban's been rolling hard on these people for a long time, oppressing them and doing all kinds of horrible things to them, even to the point where they're ready to revolt. And he's got them on their side. So he has all these, he has an army within there, in the city, already in there, ready to go, on top of the invading Fremen force that they're going to use as they blow open that shield wall and they come in with sandworms and stuff like that. So he's really managed to really unite all the Fremen against the Emperor and the Harkonnen. So very, very interesting thing that's going on. And the one thing is, since Dune is now in theaters, internationally anyway, and it seems to be doing very well, considering the circumstances that the movie's under. So it's very likely, I think, in my opinion now, my confidence for us getting the second part of that movie is very high now. So it would, this is going to be really cool to see how Denis Villeneuve is going to actually do this final battle on the big screen. And it's something I'm really, really looking forward to. Because when I saw the original, or the first version screen adaptation of Dune, and the 1984 one with David Lynch, when I remember seeing that as a kid, and that's before I knew anything about Dune or what it was. I didn't even know it was a book. I just thought it was some crazy 80s sci-fi movie. But I remember watching it, and I remember just being really, really taken by the final battle with all the worms, because it was, and the even the weirding modules, as weird as what they were. And then everything about it was just so, it was so strange looking, but captivating at the same time. And it was so different from Star Trek or Star Wars that it really grabbed my attention. And it was a really memorable final battle. And I even still think it's pretty good when I watch it today. But with all today's modern special effects and things like that, I'm really, really curious to see what Denis Villeneuve could do with that final battle that comes at the end of this book. It would be absolutely amazing. It would be really, really good. So now we see that this is the final phase of the book, like the final few chapters. This is like the final big battle here that's kicking off with this chapter, and it's going to get really interesting from here on out. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one.